Lila Evans was a perfectly ordinary girl. At least that's what she believed until her 18th birthday. Her parents, usually the epitome of embarrassing normalcy, had been acting strangely for weeks. They jumped at shadows, whispered constantly. Lila found a book on ancient languages hidden under their mattress, a ridiculous sight that made her roll her eyes. It was as if a bizarre, low-budget spy thriller had invaded her life. The day arrived and her parents, pale and drawn, presented her with a gift. It was an old, ornate chest made of dark wood, its surface etched with swirling patterns that seemed to writhe under Lila's gaze. Inside, nestled on crimson velvet, lay a letter addressed to her in flowing script. The words were a revelation, speaking of an ancient lineage, the shadow line, and Lila's place as its last heir. It was insane. It was impossible. Yet a part of her couldn't shake the feeling that it was true. That night her parents vanished. They left no note, no explanation, just an empty house and a gaping hole in Lila's life. Fear warred with a strange sense of purpose. The letter had mentioned a hidden power within her, a power she needed to learn to control. As if on cue, she noticed her shadow flicker, stretching beyond the reach of the lamplight. It felt like an invitation, a beckoning into the unknown. The first attempts were clumsy. Lila would sit in the dark, willing her shadow to move, to obey. It would quiver, sometimes morph into odd shapes. Once, it formed a fleeting image of a wolf, teeth bared in a silent snarl. Fear was a constant companion, but so was a thrilling sense of discovery. Each night brought a new revelation, a deepening connection to the shadows that were now an inseparable part of her. It wasn't all shadows and whispers. Lila discovered she could solidify shadows, weave them into shields, even use them to propel herself with surprising speed. She practiced in secret, her bedroom becoming a training ground for a power she barely understood. But her secluded world was not meant to last. One evening, a cold wind swept through her window, bringing with it the scent of ozone and a bone-chilling voice. It spoke of an ancient feud, of the Shadow Line and their sworn enemies, the Lightbringers. Lila was a threat, a last ember of a power they sought to extinguish. The voice belonged to a man cloaked in light, his features obscured by a blinding radiance. He called himself a harbinger, and his arrival shattered Lila's fragile peace. Her training had to become survival. Fleeing her home, guided by instinct and cryptic clues left behind by her parents, Lila found herself on the doorstep of a crumbling bookstore. The air buzzed with a strange energy, drawing her in. Inside, an old woman with eyes like burnished silver greeted her. "You have come, child of shadows," she said, her voice a low thrumming. "We have been expecting you." The bookstore was a facade, a hidden entrance to a sanctuary known as the Shadow Line. This ancient haven, nestled deep in a forgotten forest, became Lila's refuge and training ground. Here, under the watchful eyes of Soraya, the last guardian of the Shadow Line, Lila began to understand the true extent of her powers. Soraya spoke of a time when Shadowline and Lightbringers maintained the balance, their powers intertwined, but greed and ambition corrupted the Lightbringers, twisting their powers and leading to a war that nearly consumed the world. "You, Lila," Soraya said, her voice echoing in the vast chamber they used for training, "possess a rare gift, the ability to not only command shadows but to also manipulate light itself. It is a power that can tip the scales, restore balance, or destroy everything." The weight of these words settled on Lila's shoulders, heavier than any physical burden. She wasn't just the last Shadow Line, she was the key to ending an age-old conflict. The Lightbringers found them, of course. Their attack on the sanctuary was swift and brutal, a blinding storm of energy that tore through the ancient wards like paper. Lila, armed with her growing control over light and shadow, found herself at the heart of a battle she never wanted. But fear was a luxury she couldn't afford. She fought back, weaving shadows into whips, solidifying light into blinding bursts, her every move fueled by desperation and a growing rage. The battle raged, a chaotic dance of light and shadow that shook the very foundation of the sanctuary. Soraya, a fierce warrior despite her age, fought alongside her, but their enemies were relentless. Just when all hope seemed lost, Lila felt a surge of power unlike anything she'd ever experienced. It flowed through her, a torrent of raw energy that erupted outward, pushing back the Lightbringers and bathing the battlefield in an eerie twilight. When the dust settled and the echoes of battle faded, Lila stood amidst the ruins, her body trembling with exhaustion. Soraya lay nearby, mortally wounded. With her dying breath, she grasped Lila's hand. The fate of the shadow line, the balance of the world, it rests on your shoulders now, child. Embrace your destiny. And with those words, the last guardian of the shadow line was gone. Grief threatened to consume Lila, but she pushed it down. Replaced by a steely resolve, she was the last, but she would not be the end. She was the heir to the shadows, the weaver of light, and she would fulfill her destiny. The battle was over, but the war for balance had just begun.